In this session, we'll learn how to create a support system for the parents, both how to convince them of the need, of their capacity to get supporters, how to help them practically to get a support system, and how to activate the support system. Okay, support, as you know, is one of the key elements of nonviolent resistance and of the new authority. So why do we need a whole village to raise a child? Okay, all of us know this proverb. Okay, the question is why? Why can't parents be enough on them? Usually in the history of psychology, we tended to think of the close family unit, of the intimate relationship between parents and children as being the key, okay, to healthful development. And we believe that's not true. We believe we need more, that every child needs far more than just this intimate relation. Even we think that in order that the intimate relation be a good relation, be a positive relation, be a significant relation for the child, the parents cannot stand alone. They must feel this support, that they are part of something. And also the child, okay, must be able to see that the parents are part of something bigger. Okay, the first reason then why we need a village, okay, to raise a child is because the child has those needs to belong, and they're not individual. Okay, the child has needs to belong to something larger, to a network, to a we, to a group. We see that so obviously, okay, in adolescence, that sometimes when the parents are very isolated or are strangers in a community, okay, the teens are attracted very strongly to a strong group, okay, of other teens, which sometimes can be very problematic because the parents are unable to satisfy this deep need to belong to a larger unit. Then parents need support because when they're isolated, when they are alone, they can be very easily pressured. Okay, the child knows very well what buttons to push to make the parents react in different ways. And so long as the parents are alone, okay, they are very easily pushable. Okay, those buttons are there very easily to access, so they can lose control or they can give in. Okay, isolated parents are much more prone either to loss of control, okay, or to giving in. Then parents need legitimation. Okay, this is a very important point. Research shows that, for instance, the values of parents, okay, or the limits of parents during adolescence are respected much more if they are backed by other people. Okay, that means adolescents are very sensitive to the issue of whether something, okay, a rule or a prohibition or a limit is something that is merely the parents' initiative, or it is something that is much more acceptable, that has wide legitimacy and acceptance. So parents need that. Then there are many things that parents can do well, and some supporters would be much better able to do them instead of the parents. We'll see. Parents can do some things well either because of their parental position or because they are in a relationship with the child that instigates, okay, problematic reactions. Then somebody else can do or carry or bring messages to the child that the parents are unable to do, or because the parents don't have the skills to do some things that supporters may have. Then we know that the presence of supporters is highly beneficial. In cases of violence, supporters reduce violence. Okay, the mere presence of support, the mere fact that supporters know about what is happening and the child knows that the supporters know reduces violence. Anxiety. Okay, children behave less anxiously with other people than with their parents. Okay, they're most regressive and most anxious and most dependent when their parents are around, when only their parents are around. In the presence of supporters, children are very often much, much less anxious and are able to behave more maturely. And also supporters are very helpful in reducing risk behaviors. Okay, the very message, okay, we are here, we know what is happening. By supporters, reduces risk behaviors. We have lots of evidence showing those three things are right. So those are some of the reasons why this proverb is true, why we really need a whole village in order to raise a child. But in order to be able to the parents to do this, okay, really to become able, willing and able to get out of their isolation, okay, therapists must be able to convince them. Because very often parents have objections, very serious objections. They have, many parents have a natural tendency to stick to the intimate sphere, okay, to keep their problems within the parent-child unit, not to bring it out, not to get support, to try to deal with it only of themselves. We should know as therapists, what these objections are. If we therapists know already, okay, if we have a good idea what the typical objections of the parents are, we'll be able to get these objections out, like to really to bring the parents to voice them so that we can address them. So we should have a good map of what the typical objections by parents to the mobilization of supporters are, so that we may be better able to counter them and to bring the parents to a growing readiness to get support. So the first typical objection is what we call the privacy reflex. What is the privacy reflex? Is the tendency, almost automatic tendency, okay, problems should be resolved within the family, within our intimate circle. Okay, we don't want to bring their problems outside. And also the child should be respected very much, and also ours, so that they immediately know, why can't we do it alone? We should do it alone. There is even a sense that if we don't do it alone, this is already a betrayal, a failure. So this is the privacy reflex. We are a society in which privacy is a very important value, okay? More than in the past, much more than in the past. So we have developed this privacy reflex. We prefer to achieve progress by, let's say, secret agreements with the child. Okay, we prefer it definitely than to the possibility of finding solutions in a wider circle, in a wider network. Not only parents, teachers also have a privacy reflex. They'll prefer to reach an agreement with the child without bringing the problem to any kind of public attention. And we call, okay, these are horse dealings, okay? If you do this, I'll do this. If you do this, I won't tell this to your parents. Okay, that's the privacy reflex. Okay, so it's very important to learn to identify this privacy reflex. It is always there. Okay, to recognize it, to name it. Okay, and also to present to the parents our position why this privacy reflex, particularly in their case, is paralyzing them, is reducing their efficacy, okay, is reducing their positive strength, is leaving them at the mercy of their own problematic reactions and of the child's problematic reactions. Okay. We also talk to the parents about the fact that we have become a very enclosed society, each family living in its own apartment and things happening only there. We think as the family unity as the whole world, and then a child loses that ability of growing in a kind of open space, and the child needs this open space, especially when it comes to things like risk behaviors, values, acceptable limits, and so forth. So the privacy reflex is highly, highly problematic. We should also keep in mind that we therapists, have a lot to do with the fact that this privacy reflex has developed. After all, we therapists have developed the ultimate private space, the total private bubble, which is the therapy room. Nothing comes inside and nothing goes outside. So it goes a little bit against the grain of a therapy to learn to know it is not only with the parents that we are working, we're working with the parents and we need more than the parents. Okay, we have to overcome our own privacy reflex, which is a very strong element of our therapeutic training. Keeping that in mind is also very important because in learning nonviolent resistance and the new authority, we're overcoming some of the typical limitations of our therapeutic education. Okay, another typical objection is shame. Okay, parents feel ashamed to bring their problems to others, to tell about their problems to others. Okay, very common response, very natural response. But perhaps even more, they feel afraid that the child will feel shame, and they feel that the shame can be absolutely traumatic, terrible, catastrophic experience. They say, no, he will simply flip out if we talk about it with other people, with strangers, okay? He will never forgive us, or he will collapse, he'll get crazy, or he'll run away from home. Okay, so the shame is supposed to be in itself a traumatic experience. So it's very important to know this, and particularly to consider this in the context of the child's shame experience. Because it is true that shame is very unpleasant. It is almost always very unpleasant, some pleasant experience, some pleasant emotion, definitely. But it is not necessarily destructive, certainly not necessarily traumatic. No, it can also be constructive. There is constructive shame. It can also be absolutely necessary for development. So, what is the difference? How can we talk to the parents about their fear that shame is so catastrophic for the child? We can openly and clearly tell them there is destructive and constructive shame. Destructive shame is the shame that is experienced in the context of segregation. You don't believe here. Go to the corner. If you do this, you don't belong to this family. Okay, get out of this class. This is that kind of is the shame of exclusion, and this kind of shame is negative. Always, very, very negative. But there's another kind of shame that is inclusive. What does it mean, inclusive shame? It is shame that is experienced in a context of appreciation, of love, of care, of trust. Thus, when we talk to supporters and when we're in the supporters meeting and when we help the parents to talk to their supporters, always when supporters are involved, they're updated on something, they talk to the child about it. They talk about the problem behavior very openly and also name it very openly. Violence is called violence, exploitation is called exploitation, abuse is named. Everything is named clearly. We don't use a kind of sterile language which tries to improve. But before even they call the things by name, they give the child three kinds of positive messages. What are these positive messages? The first is a message of love and care. I love you. You're important for me. You're very dear to me. The first is then love. The second is appreciation, trust. I believe you can do this. I believe you can overcome this. I'm sure you can change this problem behavior and feel proud that you did it. So this is the second. The third, I'm willing to help you. You can call me. I'll help you find a solution. I'll help you do an act, make amends. I'll help you find a way not to become so angry again. Sometimes even I'll help you discuss this with your parents and find a positive, a compromise, an acceptable compromise for you. I'll help you find a honorable solution. These are all ways that supporters can show to the child that they know about the problem behavior. They're very much aware that they know that this cannot continue, that they're clear about the fact that they cannot continue. But on the other hand, the child experiences this context of support, okay? Love and care, trust and appreciation. I'm sure you can do this. I believe you can do this. I believe you can overcome. And a readiness to help. You can call me at any time, okay? And I'll help you find a solution. So when shame is experienced in such a context, shame becomes an unpleasant but highly constructive experience, highly important for the child's development. Okay, there are also people, experts in research and criminology, who say that delinquent adolescents, among others, especially violent delinquent adolescents, have had a lack in experience of constructive shame. Okay, so much so they only experience destructive shame. Okay, that kind of exclusive shame, so that they react to any kind of shame experience minimal with an attempt to totally shame the other, to humiliate the other, to show the other that. Okay, so these adolescents they need new positive, constructive experience of shame to develop a capability, to develop their capacity to withstand shame and react to it in acceptable and productive ways. So that's an important theory about delinquent behavior in adolescents, particularly violence. Okay. Another typical objection of parents is that they say, well, if we talk to supporters, then we'll be weak, or we'll seem weak, or our child will tell us that we are weak, or will think that we are weak. Okay, this is also very common. This objection is very common with teachers. Well, if I get support, then my students will think that I'm weak. Okay, so this is very common. Now it is important to know and to respond to this objection. Okay, we can say, this kind of strength, if you're talking about, is this kind of strength. I must be able to show him who's the boss here. We're not talking about this kind of strength. We're talking about a different kind of strength. We're talking about the strength of broad shoulders, the strength of the we. This is strength. Okay? You may not be strong like this, but you are strong like this. And we believe that this is the constructive strength that you need and that the child needs. Actually, by getting supported, you're becoming much, much stronger. Okay? But in a good sense, in an acceptable sense, in a positive sense, you won't be showing the child who is the boss. You don't need that. That creates escalation. Okay? On the contrary, okay? You definitely don't need it. Okay? By saying we instead of saying you will do what I say, if you say we are going to do what we say, okay, you are becoming much stronger, but stronger in a stable way, in a legitimate, and you learn to convey this strength. Okay, you learn to sell when the child blames you, say, you're afraid to do it on your own. Okay, you don't dare to cope with me on your own. You have to go and call your uncle and grandpa, and you can say then, of course. Okay, those are problems that affect us all. Okay, if you are violent, violence affects the whole family. And of course, your grandpa has to know about it. After all, your sister is also his grandchild, exactly like you. What? Wouldn't your grandpa think that protecting her grandchild is important, is valuable, is central? Okay, so of course, okay, we all, or when you behave in dangerous ways, of course we do it, we respond to it together. We are all responsible for it. We all care to you. This is strength. This is strength. When we learn to speak like this to parents, parents smile and they become able to expect this kind of reactions. Okay, what, are you afraid to do it on your own? Of course I don't stay alone with this. Okay, of course I'll talk to your uncle and to your grandfather, sure, or with your teacher, definitely. That's obvious. Okay, because they care for you and we care for each other very much. And we are not willing to give you up together. We're not willing to, okay, that's very important. We say the fear to seem weak is then that we turn the tables on that parental fear of seeming. Then another typical objection, and this is very, okay, there are parents that simply, okay, don't dare to get support because they're afraid of the child's reaction. There are many children who actually threaten the parents with tremendous, okay, you will see, if you tell anybody about this, I will. Okay, so parents are very much afraid of the child's reactions. Okay, sometimes there is really a what we call dynamics of blackmail. What's the dynamic of blackmail? Okay, blackmailers always tell their victims, if you tell this to others, to the police or to others, then we kill the hostage and so on. Okay, so that this is an atmosphere of blackmail, potential or completely implicit or completely explicit. What kind of reactions the parents are most afraid of? That the child will break down, will collapse, okay, will have a psychotic break because of the shame and so on. Okay, that the child will run away, okay, or that the child behaves tremendously violently to them, or that the child will commit suicide. Okay, those are the big fear scenarios that parents have. Now, we give all of these scenarios, okay, the due importance. We never tell parents, no, there's no fear of suicide, there's no suicidal, never, never. Whenever there's a threat of suicide, even an implicit one, we help the parents to take it seriously and to respond to it in very constructive ways. Okay, there is an article that Ian Dandolberg wrote about suicide threats. Okay, it's the first article in the literature. There are infinite number of articles about suicidality, but not about suicide threats, which is an absolute daily situation for, okay, innumerable parents, okay, facing suicide threats, explicit or implicit, and dealing with them. Okay, so the first rule is that the parents don't stay alone in the face of suicide threats. Okay, threats. But okay, one of the things that you receive, okay, as during together with this course is this article. Okay, we won't get into in detail during the course about this program that we have of how to help parents face suicide threat, but we think this is essential knowledge for all of you. Okay, regarding the other fears, regarding violence, we help the parents, okay, to protect themselves against violence and also to avoid escalation. Okay, we have a whole program, okay, of how to withstand violence without escalating. We will devote one session, one unit of this course to the issue of violence. The fear that the child will run away from home, which is an important fear in cases in which the child has already done that in the past. We haven't had any single case of a child running away from home who did not run already away from home, disappear, I mean, vanish for one day, for one night, for a few days sometimes. Okay, we didn't have in one case in which this did not happen already before. Okay, so we can ask the parents whether this happened. Many times, parents are afraid that the child will run away from home when a child is absolutely territorial, absolutely dependent on his own. No. In those cases, there is really no danger. Then we can tell these parents, this is not the kind of child who runs away from home. This is the kind of child who may undertake other problematic reactions, okay? Other wild reactions, like, for instance, children with OCD can take revenge on the parents for something that they do. Okay, so we help the parents protect themselves and to cope with those fears in a positive way. Okay, instead of giving in and instead of creating simply a catastrophic image. And the fear of collapse of the child will have a psychotic outbreak, it is just the contrary. Okay, the moment we have supporters, okay, the child becomes held, okay, contained, okay, in the context of the supports, not only the parents who are supported, it's also the child who is supported. In the case of suicide, this is very, very clear. Okay, the child immediately, okay, reacts. Okay, he's also being contained. That people care into it because every suicide threat has an element of of reality. Okay, the child for one instant, for one moment, or maybe for more, has considered, okay, the possibility of doing that. Okay, even for a little bit, just in the corner of his mind, does that. So the fact that supporters come and tell the child, "Look, we care for you. We do everything we can so that you don't hurt yourself. Everything will help you get over that. There's only one thing that we won't do, okay? And your parents won't do. Okay, give up to your demands or to your violent behaviors, because then we would not be helping you, on the contrary. But everything else we'll be willing to do in order to support you. So it's a very powerful message of support. So you see, the good way to deal with the parents' objections regarding the fears of the child's reactions is never, 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 okay, to diminish their importance. Okay, on the contrary, we must take consideration of them. They must be considered seriously. We must show the parents that we are attentive, okay, to their worries, and that we are willing to help them. We have the means to help them cope with their fears in a positive, in a constructive way. Another very common objection, both of parents and both of therapists, also therapists ask us, what can we do if the parents have no supporters? If they really are completely alone, there's nobody there. Okay, we say this contention, we don't have any supporters, is not so much an objective fact, but as much of a mentality and a habit. Not having supporters is also an attitude. So when the parents say, we don't have any supporters, okay, the first thing that we do is, okay, let's see, let's check this slowly. What about grandparents? Are there grandparents? Okay, sometimes there aren't, but in the majority of cases, there are grandparents. So they may say, well, but they're old or they live far away. They're not involved. Okay, well, the fact that they're old doesn't mean that they cannot be of help as supporter. The fact that they're old and sick or far away, they can support by phone, okay, by Zoom, by email. Okay, they can be present in this way so that it is possible. Okay, you don't want to worry. Okay, but you don't want to worry them, and you're marginalizing them. Okay, grandparents are people that when they are marginalized, they simply lose some of the possibility of getting meaning for their life. We have had cases of not only old, but very sick grandparents, even bedridden grandparents who gave fantastic support. Not only did they give fantastic support, they also gained meaning, significance for their life. Okay, they increase their wish to live, and sometimes they gain influence, okay, in the behavior. And so we start asking if there are grandparents, where do they live? If there is any contact, how could we update them? Okay, so suddenly, in the majority of cases, there are grandparents. And except for cases of complete dementia, we also involve them. Okay, sometimes there is a complete cutoff between the parents and the grandparents, then this is a more difficult situation. But so long as there is some relationship with the grandparents, also abroad, then the grandparents can fulfill an important support function. Then we ask about brothers, sisters, cousins. And many times we find, yes, we say, well, but everybody is busy with their own problems. You're not busy with their problems. We have a very clear experience. When we have a supporters meeting, we tell the parent, supporters come in and they are grateful that they were invited. Very much. This is a very meaningful experience for people. And also, what they demand from them is modest. Okay, it is not that they're going to carry our problems in their shoulder. No, each supporter will help to the measure of his abilities, of his capacity. Okay, and sometimes very little is enough. Okay, one phone call and one visit, a home visit, is enormous support already. Some supporters will give more than that. There are other activities, but even this, okay, one phone call, talking to the child or to the parents or sending a message, okay, to the child is already significant support. Visiting, okay, the home is already enough. One visit, okay, so parents say, but the child refused to talk to them. Yeah, but it's not so important that the child's willing to talk to them. Let's say, okay, uncle and aunt come to visit the house. They live far away. They come especially for one visit because of the special situation. The child locks himself in his room. Okay, so he knows that they are there. Okay, uncle and aunt, he knows that they are there. That's why he's locking himself in the room. Okay, so they stay with the parents for half an hour. They talk about this and that. They talk about the problem. They talk about the program. And at the end of their visit, they go to the child's room, call him, knock on the door, call him. Child probably won't answer. He may, but usually he won't answer. He says that we just wanted to tell you that we were here and that we care very much about you. They say it alone. And they write a message. Can we talk to your parents about this, about the violence? We are sure that you can overcome it. And we care about you and we are willing to help you. This small, and they push it under the door so that it is not even necessary that the child talks to them. Okay? It is absolutely effective and meaningful that the supporters were there and that they send a unilateral message to the child. Understand this. Changes completely the meaning of support. Okay, the child must not accept that support. Little by little, chances will grow that the child will accept some of the support also for him or herself. Okay, but many times, particularly highly resistant oppositional children, at least in the first stage, they will resist. Okay, but then the child is getting unilateral messages that shows that the parents are no longer alone. And that eventually he, the child, or she may feel that she is also not alone. So we know, knowing these typical objections, having this map on our mind, and developing, okay, these responses, okay, is of great value. It's of great value. We can increase our ability to convince parents to mobilize a support system, and also we increase the size of the support system. We know from our experience in our different centers that this ability, this capacity to convince parents and to really to gather together support network is learnable, that we therapists can learn that. How do we know that? We know that because therapists who are young to the approach, okay, are only able to get supporters meetings. We'll talk about the supporters meeting in a while, okay, in a moment. Are only able to get supporters meetings in about 40% of the case, less than half the case. And even then, the number of supporters is pretty small, 3 on the average. After 1 year with us, okay, therapists are also already able to have supporters meeting in over 3/4 of the cases. And the mean number of supporters grows up to between 7 and 8. So this is a huge difference, and this is learnable. A good part of it is learning to expect and to tackle those typical objections. Now, how we always have a supporters meeting. We try to always have, as I said, okay, even therapists who are experienced have supporters meetings in 3/4 of the cases, not in 100%, but there are supporters also in the cases where there are no supporters meeting. But the supporters meeting is enormously helpful, enormously significant. I think it is the most important meeting in the whole therapy, I'm quite sure. It is something that when it happens, okay, the whole ecology of the problem is changed. It is as if the problem had before existed in a kind of a hothouse that kept it growing or maintaining it. And once the supporters meeting take place, we have a completely different ecology that creates the conditions for the problems, okay, disappearance, solution, modification. Okay, so here we have all the supporters come together. I always propose that this meeting should be longer, a double meeting, actually, because it takes time. It takes time, those different things, and the therapist should not be under time pressure. We can tell it may be less than 2 hours, okay, but we should have 2 hours ready for a good supporters meeting. Then maybe after, okay, 75 minutes we are over, that's okay. Okay. So we begin with a round of self-presentation in which the therapist presents himself and asks all the supporters to present themselves. And he asks them special question: what is their relationship to the parents? What's their relationship to the child? If they knew directly, they knew about the child's problem. Okay. If they have anything special to say about how they feel about the child. Okay, and then we get interesting things. We get fantastic messages of appreciation. These are very, very important. Appreciation for the child. Okay, many times in this round of self-presentation, the parents get messages that really buoy them up, okay, that give them courage. Okay, you see them almost crying many times because of the moving story that supporters tell about. Sometimes, and we also ask some of the supporters, the closer ones, some specific questions, like, for instance, do you think you could have a direct and open conversation with the child about this problem? Would you be able to address him? Would he be open to such a conversation with you? This is very important. If we had somebody. Or do you think you could, okay, take this child with you, okay, to go out, to go to a coffee shop, to go fishing, to go to a sports event? This can be very important. Or a crucial question we ask some of the supporters: do you think you could take the child to your house for a few days, a weekend, if the situation becomes very difficult? Okay, with the parents sometimes, okay, this can be crucial. In all of the cases in which we've had it, this, okay, when we accompany it with other interventions, with other elements of the new authority, then, okay, the fact that the child can stay with the grandparent for 2 or 3 days, sometimes even a whole week, can be very, very meaningful and very positive. Okay, it can be a stepping stone to something different, to something. So those are questions that we ask in the cell presentation round. So this is a very, it's not only, okay, this is a very moving element, very important element of the meeting. Then after this, we ask the parents to present the problem. It's very important to tell them beforehand that we'll ask them to present the problem without predefining it. Okay? Telling, giving really examples of how difficult the situation is, because parents have this normal tendency of speaking in very general terms. And if the parents do this, we ask them, can you give some example? Or even so, there's this the example that you discussed. Would you be willing to share it? Because, we all have to have a common picture. So the presentation of the problem, okay, we prepare the parents to do it, okay, really in concrete ways. The supporter should be able to get to see the things in their imagination, how they take. There are sometimes strong reactions from the supporters, okay, they can be shocked, okay, very often it is. And we have a job, we the therapists have a job, okay, we have to protect the parents against negative reactions. How could you leave it come to this point? We have to protect the parents and we have to protect the child. This is typically, it's very rare, okay? It's not common at all, those attacks on the parents or the child. But we should be there and we tell the parents beforehand. Our job will be, if there are any untoward reactions by supporters, we'll help you. We'll protect you and also your child. Okay, we won't allow this to stigmatize your child at all. Okay, so we do this. So we come in, okay, child behavior, okay, has violent behavior. We say, okay, the parents, okay, have had the courage, okay, to share with you those things. Okay, this is a very courageous act. Okay, so we should respect them for that. And we want to tell it is not the child is violent because he's bad. He's not bad. but he enjoys the power. What can we do? We all enjoy power. Okay, and if someone has absolute power, he can also be corrupted by the power, exactly like us. Okay, then the supporters can understand. Okay, that's okay. He enjoys the power. Okay, enjoys to have his way, and so long as he can have his way, he will continue to have his way. So, okay, that's a way of protecting the child. Okay, he's not bad. It's not bad at all. That's not what it is. But he has power, and the power is important for him, for so many people, for all of us, power is important. Okay, so after this presentation of the problem, we come to, okay, the third phase of the meeting. We give a short presentation of the model. We tell the supporters about the importance, let's say, if it is violence, of nonviolent resistance and of prevention of escalation. Okay, we are helping the parents to protect themselves, okay, the other siblings, the house against the attacks of the child. If it's a case of risk behaviors, we tell them, we help the parents to be more present, to exercise what you call vigilant care, to keep a finger on the pulse. This reduces risk behavior. They'll do daring things regarding it. And then we say for these things, for this to resist or to exercise vigilant care, parents need support. We know that parents become much more able, that there is much less escalation, and that there are many things that they can't tell the child, but a supporter can. We tell them. So that we attend. That's why, and we say to the supporters, from now on, okay, any case in which such or such behavior appears, violent or risk behavior, or totally avoidant berets or total refusal, okay, we will involve supporters, not all of you. For such an event, one or two supporters. And the parents, okay, will decide who the supporters in the case. So in 1 week, never more than two supporters who talk to the child. That's accepting one case of suicide threat. When there is suicide threat or gesture, then more supporters are involved, particularly after a suicide attempt. By the way, okay, suicide attempts, okay, we had innumerable cases for parents who came to us after suicide attempts. It's extremely rare that a suicide attempt, the first suicide attempt, was made after the beginning of the therapy. Extremely rare, okay? I mean, okay, in all of our experience. I don't say that they don't exist, okay? They do, but I want to say that they are extremely rare, and then we have a very good chance of reacting, okay, appropriately. And already, if we think that there is such a risk, okay, we have all kinds of preventive means that we can utilize already in the way to that. And so we present the model, and we also tell the supporters of the importance that when they address the child, when they talk to the child about the child's difficult behavior, they should do it by talking clearly about the difficult behavior, but also giving the child positive messages of support. I care for you. I love you. You're important to me. I believe in you. Okay, I believe you can overcome this. I'm sure you can cope with this. Okay, and I'm willing to help. You can call me. I do everything in order to help you get over that. Okay, so that the supporters understand. Okay, that when they come, it is not only that they are giving the child a shame experience. Actually, tell if the supporters ask us, many times they ask, isn't this shaming? Then we tell them of the difference between a destructive and a constructive shame experience. This can be an important, okay, moment in the supporters meeting when they understand that this coming together, if it creates shame, then it is shame, a constructive shame experience in a holding context, in a context of belonging. Then after this, we tell the supporters how they can help in cases of violence. We ask who could help with, for instance, is there anybody who can help the child with his learning difficulties? Is there anybody, let's say a single mother, an adolescent son, is there some male member of the group that would be willing or capable of having an intimate talk with the child, that it is not a good idea that the mother may have? These are possible things. Okay, we ask for different ways, and sometimes we get proposals. Okay, a supporter says, I can offer him work, I can bring him to work in my farm or in my job. Okay, can you do? How do you think he would react? I'm sure he would react good because he did it already. Okay, so that the practical things. At the end of the session, there are some concluding arrangements. What do I mean? Concluding arrangement. We can always we create a platform, okay, for communicating, WhatsApp or email, okay, platform in which every supporter that has a contact with the child is asked to post a small description of what happened, and that this is very important in this platform. The therapist can react to, for instance, to interpret, to show little signs of progress that many times the parents can see or the supporters can see, okay, to point to that, to ask for a specific with the parents' permission. Always that any request that the therapist does, the therapist has to get the parents' permission to do that. That is, the therapist does not address directly the supporters without, okay, being sure that the parents would accept this intervention. Okay, so that's and usually having discussed it before. So these are the concluding arrangement, and then it's the end. Okay, it's very. I want to tell you. Okay, most of the supporters are very thankful for participating. Okay, it moves them to have been invited. Okay, so here are a list of supporters' functions: reducing violence and escalation by their mere presence or knowledge of what is going on. Okay, they already reduce. We know that, for instance, in sit-ins, when performing a sit-in, the very fact that a supporter, okay, is in the house, as always, not inside the room where the sit-in takes place, reduces violence and escalation. Then fostering legitimacy. Okay, when the supporter says to a child who is vanishing at night, he says, look, of course, we'll have to look for you. If you disappear, we'll have to look for you. Okay, we cannot give you up. What do you think? Your parents can give you up, or I can give you up? We cannot give you up. Okay, this is legitimacy. They offer help. Okay, they offer help to the child. Look, okay, I can help you deal with it. I can help you find an honorable solution. That's very important. The word honor is very important. Okay, we say it in the supporters meeting. Always tell the child, okay, your honor is important to me. Okay, helping the child feel that he's respected. Your self-respect is very important to me. Okay, I don't want you to feel that you're humiliating yourself by no means. On the contrary, I'm willing to help you do this act of amends, of reparation, so that you can do it with pride and not with someone who was forced to do it. So that I'll help and will think how to do it in honorable way. Okay, when you say to a child, to an adolescent, your honor is important to me, you're giving this child honor by simply saying your honor is important to me. Because when we want to humiliate somebody, we don't say your honor is important to me. We say, who do you think you are? Okay, so this is what is called a performative statement. Okay, by saying it, you're performing it. By saying your honor is important to me, you're giving the child honor. Okay, by that very fact. Okay, so then another supporter function is mediation. Many times, okay, in a dispute, okay, mediation, achieving compromises, but legitimate, positive compromises. Okay, this is important many times. And then one of the important supporters functions is that they help the parents convey to the child a sense of larger belonging. You say there is an invitation to belong. There is a continuous invitation to belong. Okay, the supporters say, okay, I'll be around. Okay, you don't have to give me an answer now, but I think about you. We are thinking about you all the time. This is okay. We think about you. Okay, this fantastic message. We think about you all the time. So don't give me an answer now about, like, for instance, the offer to help the child with an act of amends, with making amends. Okay, so that, no, think about it. We're thinking about you all the time. This is already an invitation to belong. We are thinking about you all the time. Okay, so these are some okay, involving supporters in cases of violence of risk. I said one or two. When there is a violent event, one or two supporters, okay, are asked to get in touch with the child and say, I'm willing to help you. I'm sure you can overcome that. I love you, I care for you, but maybe you forget that your sister is also my grandchild, no? Grandpa. This is important. Okay. Suicide threats and gestures, you're getting this article. Okay. This we have interventions that are extremely effective and dramatic. Okay, adolescents, okay, parents who came to us after a suicide attempt sometime, okay, the adolescent is still, or the young adult is in the hospital, okay, okay, people know already of our program, so sometimes we are able to do it immediately. So this adolescent try to commit suicide, gets 10 visits from supporters, not one in this case, who come and tell him, of course, we are here. We'll do everything that we can, everything in our power, so to prevent that you do this again. We care for you so much as that. And the very fact of the suicide attempt justifies it. This is the fact that a suicide gesture justifies an immediate, okay, involvement of supporters. So they are not only, okay, crises, they're also big opportunities when they have. So we have very, okay, moving examples of, and not only the hospital, they can do, can when there is a suicide attempt, supporters come to the home. And then many grandparents, uncles, okay, they come, they talk, I'll do everything. You are again in danger, call me, here's my phone. At any hour of the day or night, this is very important. You're giving this message to the child. Then another important service, giving parents and child a break, taking the child away for a few days or for a few hours. It is very important. Okay, it doesn't mean that the parents are not weak by that. On the contrary, we are just acknowledging the fact that the situation is difficult. Okay, that the parents need help, that the situation is difficult. This is important. Helping the child to make amends. We'll come back to this issue when we'll talk about the specific tools we have already described. Okay, now we have a series of messages that we have collected through, okay, through the years that convey this kind of what we call a standing invitation to belong. These are messages, parents have collected these messages. So I'm just giving you some of these examples. You can also suggest, you can also tell, see this message, what do you think? Okay, one of the, I'm your dad and will always be your dad. Okay, this is important. Okay, simply saying that. I know that you ever are in danger. I'll do all I can to help. You know that if you ever are in danger, I'll do all. This is important to say this, to remind the child. I know that if I or mom were in danger, you do anything could to help us. This is particularly important. A child who is detached, okay, who is oppositional. I know that if I or mom were in danger, you do anything. It is credit that the child receives. This is an invitation to belong. And the messages of pride, particularly, okay, the difficult qualities. I'm proud of all your qualities, of your personality, of your qualities. I'm proud even of your toughness and resistance. I'm sure that your toughness and resistance will someday be of great help for you. Okay? Or you have an incredible fighting spirit. Someday this will help you enormously. Those messages of pride are important. Another one is messages about our family. Our family's motto is one for all and all for one. Okay, the three musketeers, one for all and all for one. Okay, coming to an adolescent, to a boy, and say, look, that's how it is in our family. An uncle that comes to the child says, you know, in this family, it is like this, one for all and all for one. There's no child whose chest won't expand in pride when they hear this. That's why this is an invitation to belong. Then, okay, it's very important, as I said, in those messages, not only to say, see, you can behave nicely if you want. That's not an invitation to belong. But to tell the child, you know, no one can defeat you. We have also given certificates to children that they are invincible, certificate of invincibility, in which the whole family signs, even the dog signs a certificate. And then, okay, they do a sit-in when the child has beat up his sister. What, you have given me this certificate? I am invincible. And of course, you're invincible. Nobody can defeat. We know that it's impossible to bring you to a situation where you bow your head. You never bow your head. But it is our utmost duty to protect your sister. That's what we are doing. And to resist the violence. That's what you're doing. Defeat you impossible. And it's interesting, right? That we are resisting the violence and telling the child that no one can defeat you at the same time. Okay, this is the kind of interesting messages that we can convey in nonviolent resistance. Or another one, a child who lies, okay, to protect another child. Okay, maybe you're behaving like that because you feel are with your back up to the wall. Or another thing, there's a child who behaved explosively. And it said, maybe you did this because you feel you are with the back to the wall. That's respect. We understand that. We can't accept this. Okay, and we don't think you are with the back to the wall, but we can understand that you felt that way. Okay, this is an invitation to belong. Or I think you did that out of loyalty to your friends. That's fantastic. But we have to think about a solution. But this is an amazing expression of respect. A child who lied to protect a friend at school. Okay, you did this out of loyalty to your friends or even participated. Okay, so you have, now we have seen, okay, this whole arch, okay, of the importance of support of the creation, of a sense of we, okay, this change in the ecology of the problem and of the family. And, okay, this continuous, steady invitation to belong, okay? That's why we need a whole village to raise a child, and that's the way to construct this village. Thank you very much.